the shop tech, air compressors in general, and then we go into your specific, that setup downstairs, wherever it is, that one. Is it working? There it is.
Signal.
We don't know what trench is up here.
That we put together from components down in Uxbridge. It's two 7.5 horsepower
There we go.
compressors, each putting out about 28 CFM. The requirement is 19,
This is so I can get it to work where
60%, 40% over for each machine. So the machines run load, no load, and we'll get into that. Just do away with that mobile link thing. You can just X out.
Oh. So those are X.
Not breaking up both.
He'll be coming along shortly if we're going to go down to the machine and take a look at that. This thing pops up. I don't know why, but there's nothing that happens. These are just a couple of warm-ups here for
That's a new compressor on the left?
yeah. Stuff that you guys, the older fellows might have used.
Refurbished.
I think we still have the one in the middle, right?
The contract only called for a refurb. I was like the one that had the
It's a refurbished guy from, it says Sullair on it, but it really isn't. It's a Sullivan. Probably, I mean, look at the wheels here. This is a picture I took when I did the Grand Canyon in '07. Old Ingersoll. This is I'm not sure what the heck this is, but it's a 3-cylinder, oilless, tankless air compressor from 1492, I think. All right, the history of Sullair is Sullair is an American company. It's owned by, it was started in 1965 in Michigan City, Indiana, and the manufacturing and corporate office is there today. 84, Sullair was bought out by Sunstrand, and today United Technologies owns Sunstrand. Sunstrand owns Sullair, and the manufacturing facilities are still in Michigan City, Indiana. They have factories in Europe and Australia and China. This is our office building down in Uxbridge, Mass. And we have 15, although you probably only ever see 1 or 2 guys. We do have 15 service technicians throughout our 3 offices in Uxbridge, Springfield, and Connecticut. Provide our customers with outstanding service, and this is typical stuff. This slide, or this next part of the presentation, is strictly for general shop tech machines. We'll start out with safety. You have to read the book, read the manual to really get into everything, but air compressors have 3 dangerous things. High pressure, 100 pounds, can puncture your skin. Medium voltage electricity, 460 volt, and hot oil. So any air compressor has all of that information, all of those items that you really need to pay attention to. And O'Connell or Collins will provide all the user manuals for the machine. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's supplied.
These are the configurations that the shop tech machine comes from Solaire. There's a base mount, and that's what we took 2 base mount machines and mounted it on the tank that you see down here. They also come with a tank mounted and a performance air system, which has dry air filter, air compressor, and a tank. They range from 25 to 20 horsepower, 17 to 78 CFM each, and 125 to 175 PSI nameplate. Compressor components in general is a continuous duty machine, which means 100% duty cycle. It's controlled by a microprocessor. It's very quiet. There's simple installation. It's a plug-and-play setup. They're easy to maintain, and they're customizable package, which is what we did for you guys. All the air ends are made in Michigan City, Indiana. They have a 100% duty cycle. I don't think I need to go into all of that, but there's, in a rotary screw air compressor, there's no vibration. If you find vibration, then that's something you need to let us know about. They're quiet. I don't know, have any of you heard the machine run down there and when it was running in the test phase?
Yeah, everything else is a lot more noisy than that.
Yes.
So why would we do
Yeah,
The cabinet panels, the roof, the side, and this end over here come off in order to be able to service. It is a belt drive machine. It's the only belt drive machines that Solaire makes. Major components are the fluid filter, the fluid cooler, inlet air filter, separator tube, sight glass. Now let me just go over the sight glass a little bit. You have to take the end cover off in order to see that. When you change the oil, you fill it up to the bottom here. So this is not like the other Solaire's where you see it splashing in the sight glass. You should always see that it's full. Or you shouldn't see any splashing in there when the machine is running, but you shouldn't have the cover off when it's not running anyway. So there's your fluid fill right there. The e-stop button is just that. It's an emergency stop button. Instantaneously shuts the machine off, and it'll give you a fault reading e-stop up here. The shop tech controller, main motor, compressor unit, fan motor. This is something that is on all Solaire machines, is the environmental protection pan. There's no holes in the bottom of it, so if the machine does leak, it's big enough to handle all the oil that's in the machine, unless it sprays out all over the place, but it shouldn't do that. And then your drive belts. The lubrication cooling system, this is a pressure, like all Solaire machines, there's no oil pump on it, it's pressure lubricated. So when the screw starts turning, it puts air and oil into the separator tube. Pressure forces the oil up through the cooler, through the fluid filter, and it's re-injected back into the air and mixed with the air, and it just keeps repeating itself. Control system, you got an inlet valve, check valve to allow the machine to blow down, which is the unload solenoid valve, the blow down valve, minimum pressure check valve. Again, the e-stop button and the controller. There's one pressure transducer on this, which tells you line pressure. And this is the discharge system, so you've got air and air and oil coming out, it's injected or discharged into the separator tube. This is your separator element. The oil falls to the bottom, it goes back to the unit. Air comes out and it goes to an aftercooler, depending on the size of the machine. Shop tech controller is protected by a password. I'm going to tell you what the password is, 0607. It is in the book, some of the books that you'll get, but that's not changeable. Relatively easy adjustments. So here's a shop tech controller. This is the display panel that shows the current operating conditions of the machine. This thing here is either going to say automatic, manual, stop, or fault. Goes into fault for high temperature, motor overloads, or high pressure. That's it. It'll shut down and go into fault. This is the operating temperature of the machine. It should be 175, 180, depending on what kind of 190, depending on the ambient temperature and what kind of load is on the machine. Load, unload, standby. So when we're under normal operating conditions, one machine will be off, and where it says load there, that will say standby. The other one will say that either load or UL. So it's running load, no load, load, no load. Filling up the tank to 150 pounds. The air is drawn off, the tank goes down to 120. Machine loads, fills the tank back up again. Did I go over standby? Standby means that the other compressor is ready to start. If something happens, you get a hole in your pipe down below, or you're using too much air, or a primary machine fails, second machine is ready to go, and that's what you should see. One is either load, no load, or standby on the other machine, and they do swap. Dennis and I just changed it Monday to 168 hours, which is 1 week. So every week, not necessarily on the same day, but every week the machine should swap. This is the discharge pressure that the air compressor is operating at. Power on light shows you that there's electricity to the machine. Run mode, it's operating. If it's in standby, that will be off. Fault warning indicator is a local only for the high temperature and high pressure. And it does have an audible sound to it. It will also do help me out here. It will also do motor overloads. It will show that as well. That's how you stop it. That's how you start it. This return or reset. Confirm pad. If the thing is in fault, or whatever, you use this to reset to clear it if it can be cleared. Up and down arrows change this, and then you've got the set, load and unload. If you push this while the machine is loaded, it will go to unload. If you push that when it's unloaded, it will go to load.
Quick question.
Yes.
On the fault indicator, is there some way to find out which fault?
Yes, it will show right here.
Okay.
The machine is set up to send, if the machine is running, it's going to send a signal, and I'm not sure where that is. There's a control room or something.
It's gonna be hooked up to SCADA then?
Yes. So it will tell you that one of the machines is running, and it will also tell it if it goes into an overload fault, motor overloads, either one of them, it will send a signal to your SCADA system that says it's in overload. It will not tell you that it's in fault for over temperature or over pressure. It's just not part of this control system. Does that answer your?
Yeah.
It was wired. I don't know where it goes to. You have to send for the run and the motor overload. I say you have to send a signal down to the machine, and if any of they're closed, it sends a signal back. So in our side, it's dry contacts. Now here's your system. 7.5 horsepower duplex, assembled by us at Oxford. This is each individual machine. Compressor performance for each. 7.5 horsepower. Full load pressure is 150 psi. Capacity is 26.7 CFM each. There's a 200-gallon extended platform receiver, ASME rated, and there's one internal coat of epoxy paint. The left one is compressor 1, right one is compressor 2. You have what we call the control panel. There are electrical disconnects, one for each machine at the point of use here. Filter regulator system, we're suggesting that because this tank is running between 120, and this is adjustable, 120 to 150, that in order to get a smooth, even pressure at the point of use down in the basement, that you set that at 100 plus or minus. You can go lower, you can go higher. But as long as this is set at a point below the lowest point that the air compressor loads at, there should be no change in pressure down in the basement. This is a pressure transducer that we put on it that will send a signal, a 4 to 20 milliamp signal, I guess, to your SCADA system that will measure the tank pressure, and however you set that up is how much information you want, how often you want it, and that's 200-gallon epoxy lined, zero loss drain, so there's no loss of compressed air should this tank get any water in it. And the Massachusetts Department of Public Safety risers, they require that there's a distance underneath the tank so that they can hammer, but now I guess the DPS uses ultrasonics to test the tanks. But we put it on anyway then you get a tank pressure gauge and test port, which is right here. This is